I just had a passing thought while I was taking my meds, as I call it, which is just smoking some Mary Jane. And as I'm filming this 30-day documentary of being completely transparent as I go through the process of this outpatient therapy, and then not only to track my progress or for it to be all about me or anything, but also to demonstrate the kind of resources that are available out there for people in positions like myself in this economy. And since I'm up against the challenges of no transportation, no money, and really no support system down here, meaning a network of people who I could reach out to that might know of people who can help me grow my business from being at the point that I'm at. And I am through the test phase, and I'm through a business partner that I did have, and so now I'm trying to launch it alone, which is impossible. So I'm trying to connect with people to compensate for what I don't know how to do myself. And so there's a multitude of reasons that I've decided to document the next 30 days here, because that's basically the time allotment that I have. My aunt and uncle were kind enough to sponsor, if you will, the next month for me to try to find my ducks and get them all back in a row. And in this time, I plan to also splice together parts of my day. That way, not only is it a therapy session for myself, it is also a way to be completely honest and open and transparent about every single thing, good, bad, ugly. It's 30 days of being naked, as maybe Adam and Eve, the metaphorical speaking behind Adam and Eve being naked in the garden and only becoming aware of their sin through the serpent, and then they started to be ashamed and cover themselves. And the truth of it is, we're all ugly. I see myself when I wake up in the morning, and I believe maybe even Marissa Miller wakes up in the morning sometimes and looks maybe not ugly, but you know, a little unkept. Even the prettiest of people on the planet can also be ugly. And so I want to strip off the makeup, strip off the bells and whistles of it all, and just get real for the first time, because maybe this is, each time I've tried to start over and tried to go through therapy or take advantage of different programs out there to fix myself, it's never ultimately done the trick, because I always revert back to the real me, the Nikki, you know. And I see that's a problem, and if I'm trying to turn my back and conquer sin and become the best version of myself, then I have to be able to be willing to put those things aside and turn away from it, and I don't know how to do that necessarily. So this time around, I hope to see myself as I truly am and inspire other people to maybe go through the same process and get real with themselves and really go through an exploration process to understand even what that means. And I think if we were all a little more real with one another, we would more readily accept one another exactly as we are, at the point in the path that we are, and come from a more loving state, having been able to see our own indiscretions and our own flaws. And then you can truly love unconditionally and help one another bring the best out of one another instead of the crazy bitch. And you know, a lot of people do these 30 days or 365 days of plates and dishes. It was an epiphany that you'll see in footage later in the documentary itself, that I'm just rambling as I'm walking everywhere because I have no transportation. I'm pissed because nothing's going right. And this is a different kind of documentary. I hope it's interesting. But to try and circle back here and get back to my original thought that I wanted to share with you, I have to, as I was thinking about it, smoking out there, looking through my Facebook and just thinking about the movie I watched the other night with Matthew McConaughey and Jennifer, the one married to Ben Affleck. That's terrible, I can't think of her name. Guys, because I'm stoned probably, but they are a couple who's trying to, get, that's my freaking train of thought altogether with that one. How does it pertain to my, about slut. Oh, she says there are two types of girls in the world. She has just slept with this guy she made wait forever and develop a relationship. She finally trusts him, gave herself to him, and he left. And she's like, before he left, she said, there are two types of girls in this world. There are ones that you fuck and leave, and then there are those you fucking cuddle with, basically. And she said, regretfully, I love that word in the line, I am the one of that need cuddled after. And he does cuddle and fall asleep, but in that moment, he falls in love with her, and he remembers his uncle telling him, you know, if you don't ever want to feel the pain that you feel right now, because he was a kid when he told him this, and he just got rejected at the dance, and he said he wants to never have this feeling again. He then, you know, realizes that that moment has just happened, so he escapes and leaves, so he doesn't have to continue to give that person that danger. Because I always say it, you give those people open range shot at your heart. You have to trust, and I cringe every time, because I've had many who I love take the shot every time, and so when you give them open range shot and they fucking rifle you down, it feels like shit, and it's the worst. But I'd rather deal with that pain than do what Matthew McConaughey did, and which is avoid it altogether. So my point out there was, you know, the difference between these two women is only this. It isn't because one's a so-called slut and the other one isn't, because if you think about it, if you have a boyfriend or you don't have a boyfriend, it all depends on the frequency and how often you have sex, is how many times a penis has been in your vagina to get, you know, I hate those words, I like other words for it, but I'll use those for the sake of not offending people. And I'm going to offend people anyway, but I'll try as much as I am able to filter. And that's my from me to you gift, I guess. I don't know. Isn't that the one's a slut and the other one isn't? It's just that if it's all determines the amount of frequency. If you have safe sex, what does it matter if you have the same partner or not? And that's how you become experienced. And being a single woman, I have now had a lot of partners myself. And as I've racked up 2 kind of recently within a couple months, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be that person, but I also don't want to fuck myself every day either. And should I really deprive myself of that pleasure? The Bible says, yes, you should not fornicate, and it should be withheld for marriage, and this, that, and the other, which I've never been able to comply with. As long as I've always been just studying the Bible, and I've never been fully committed to anything. I'm just studying and seeing how I feel about it. And sometimes I feel this way about it, sometimes I feel another way about it. You know, I'm sold on the Jesus thing. I think Jesus said all the right things. I'm not sure his followers and even his disciples understood him. So, you know, I have such conflict when it comes to the Bible. And so when I was contemplating those things out as I'm just smoking, I'm just thinking we're all looking for love in the wrong ways. That's the only difference. The difference between those 2 women in the movie is that they're each thirsty and hungry for love and someone to hold them. And we have to negotiate the terms of that being worth it for the person participating. And if the leverage is sex on their behalf and you do get pleasure out of it, then you can't deprive yourself just because one person won't take you. This is why I babble to my computer, because I don't believe any one person has the capacity to handle all different sides of me. I realize how many different parts of me there are and how few others have, and it's always a conflict. And so I try to, you know, spread myself out. So I know certain people who relate to certain sides of me, so I bring that side out with them. And, you know, I'm yet to find someone who can take them all. So with that, and does that mean I'm destined to be alone? Does that mean I deserve no friendships or anything beyond that? I don't think so. And I can't tell you how freeing this process has been and what I've gone through for the past 2 weeks, this documentary being triggered by a situation that I have mixed feelings about. I don't really know what I was doing. Sometimes you just a part of you takes over when you make choice. I'm filtering a lot here, where I'm trying to. I made bad choices and choices I shouldn't have made, maybe, or went down paths that I probably wasn't ready to handle because I wasn't emotionally stable enough to do it, which then pulled out and triggered things I haven't dealt with that were really buried down deep. And it's triggered this honesty, this complete, like, it's not that I don't care what other people think or I don't care about other people. It's just, I gotta be me right now and see what that is so I can combat the me's of myself I don't really enjoy and others in relationship to me don't enjoy. And if other people are find themselves in these positions, because we all seem to be having such a hard time communicating with one another, and part of that is when I'm communicating with people, what they say, and then I then turn right around and regurgitate how I understood them to mean, and then it oftentimes and unfortunately oftentimes isn't really even sometimes close to what they were saying. It was the noise and how I heard it, all goes back to the communication model. The sender, the noise, and the interpretation, and then the receiver, and then the part we always forget is the feedback, and to make sure that the person confirms that how we received it is how they delivered it, because there's so much head noise, and it's like, for me, I see it from God and darkness, light and dark side. So when they're coming through, you have these mixed emotions toward that person as it is, and then you filter what they say through that alone is enough to make it, completely impossible to communicate with one another. Just because we share a language doesn't mean we share interpretation, and that goes back to my conflicts with the church and how most of these institutions are presenting the information. Like, I have a problem with the presentation altogether and the focal points of the stories and what they're choosing to lead people to look at and it's distracted them from the real servitude and grace and forgiveness and goodness and acceptance for all people at the point in the path that they are. And so we cover our mask up so much because we want to look like everyone else. We want to look out into society at the different types of people and try to be as much like the people we want other people to perceive us as humanly possible, right? So that's really inauthentic to your true self, because you become so robotic that you don't even have a sense of your true self. You can't even understand who you were really created to be, because you've overtaken your vessel. And I've done that many times, and I'm just now realizing, like, I've got to figure out who I want to be, and that has to come from who I already am. So to wrap up this Babble Fest, and I guess sort of a trailer for the upcoming episodes that I'm going to post during this 30-day process for anyone who might find an interest in it, I just want to say that I don't even know what's going to happen over the coming days. This is day 6 today. I'm only now just finishing editing day 1 because I had to figure out the program iMovie and figure out transitions and how to splice it. I mean, I don't produce movies, so I had to figure some things out. But I'm hoping the turnaround time will be somewhere around 3 days. And over this process, whoever takes this walk with me, or even if no one does, it's just going to be an interesting process, because I even made like a little chart. Where is it? What do I want to do? I want to tell my story. I want to track my progress during outpatient treatment. This is how I think. I want a method of accountability to motivate me to stay on task. I want to document mending my relationships with God and Jesus. I want to be confessional, wipe off the mask and to get real. I want to have real relationships moving forward, meaning REAL versus relationships. My formula to stay focused and encouraged, I think a lot of people really don't know how to stay focused and encouraged sometimes, so I want to expose my method. And then I want to shine a light on the resources available and the good tricks and tips to save money during the process, because I don't have any money, but there are ways you can still do everything. It's just a little bit more of an obstacle, and it's a little less, it's more secretive. And I want to record the process of launching Higher Angels. I'm still going to launch this business, believe it or not, with or without money, transportation, everything else, because I have a plan. Essentially, all I want to do is capture either my own demise or how someone can achieve the perceivable impossible. Stay tuned. As I'm splicing together this intro to the documentary, I realize it's unclear as to what inspired it, and I feel like it's important kind of intro.